www.theleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at The League Podcast and on Twitter at The League Pod. All of our podcasts will be posted on SoundCloud at The League Podcast as well.
Are you ready? Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
Let's do this thing, man.
The League Podcast.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, I'm tired of this bitch. I'm tired of everybody coming down like, you're not focused. You only want to make music. You want to play basketball. You do everything besides play football. And let me tell y'all something. Everybody told me that. I know y'all got a favorite person, a favorite athlete, your mom, your dad, whatever y'all do. So if somebody work at Target, do you think when they work from day 9 to 5, they go home and all they do is worry about putting fucking shit on the shelves? They try to worry about what cereal numbers coming up? No. You think Bron is waking up? Oh, he having no Taco Tuesdays. Bron don't have Taco Tuesdays. Y'all think he's just whooping all day? Because they Beyonce waking up singing all day? She don't go to work, she don't act. She can do nothing else taking her kids. Really, she's waking up singing. So y'all think it's legitimate for me to just, oh yeah, I ain't supposed to be in this airport on the escalator. I'm supposed to be running up the steps, working out.
Happy Taco Tuesday!
Taco Tuesday.
Good morning, Jay. How are you, brother?
Doing great. Lev Bell, on the other hand,
Man,
he's a little irritated. It seems like.
I mean, everyone's hating on him. Everyone's talking all that good. But, you know, looking at those videos, I mean, this guy is a freaking tank.
Yeah, I mean, he looks ready to go. Like he just posted 260 ? Really?
I know,
He
right?
looks lean, mean, green machine, huh?
Yeah.
Jets, but yeah. So Lev Bell, I definitely too was like, you know, all the rapping, all the extracurricular activity he's doing is a little scary. You know, focus on football, but I mean, we're talking about one of the best, you know, arguably ever at the position to do it.
Yeah.
So I definitely will be keeping him and excited to watch what he can do on the field next year. But
Well, dude, he's going to be the focal point of that offense.
Absolutely.
Obviously, they're going to give him the
but
ball.
is that scary?
No.
Because I mean, just on the defensive side of things, because we know he's going to be the focal point, is that going to be a hard thing for Lev Bell? I mean, obviously
It's not, because it's going to open up the pass, which means it's going to open up the run. Because Sam Darnold, as we saw at the end of the last year, he balled out.
Yeah, he has a
Robbie
great arm.
Anderson balled out. Now we have Jamison Crowder in the slot, who's going to take care of that.
Totally.
Early-
I
or
think
short
Jameson
to
is going
medium.
to end as their number one receiver by the
I
end of the year.
disagree. I think Robbie
I like
Anderson
Robbie
is going to be
Anderson
a
a lot.
top 15
I
receiver
agree.
this year.
I mean, I don't know if I agree about top 15, but I really, really like Robbie Anderson, and I think he can be. He's as talented as those top tier guys, no doubt, in that top 15 range.
they just have his chemistry.
But
They
I
have a
think
chemistry
Sam
that I really
Darnold.
liked what I saw.
I just feel like Sam Darnold is gonna look to drop the ball off to those what are those called?
Like slants or crossing.
Yes. What is the word? Jeez, I'm having a really hard time.
drag
Route. Thank you. And if you look at Adam Gase's offense in the past, look what he did with Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry led the league, I think, 2 years when Adam Gase was their coach in receptions, because that's how Adam Gase's offensive run. And that's the only reason I think that Jamison Crowder is
But
going
he
to
also
really
likes
eat.
to take shots as well.
As many as dumps? No.
No,
But-
no, definitely not. But Robbie Anderson is a big
He is.
player.
You're right.
So,
I like them both, and Le'Veon Bell is only going to help that pass even more. So regardless, I think it's a win-win. But
exactly.
you know, just having that, when he played with AB, just having that weight lifted off of him. But it's gonna be interesting to see. And
It's
I think
definitely gonna be different. But I think that
that team-
Le'Veon Bell has proven that he can handle a huge load. And it may not be the best offensive line in the league as the Steelers were, but they have picked some players up, and they are forming this offensive line to be a running team.
No doubt.
You know? So
And, I think their defense is being slept on big time.
For
They have
sure.
a really, really
For sure.
solid defense. Drafting Quinnen Williams with the third pick or second pick, I forget. But huge playmaker who's still trying to work out a deal. He's one of the last rookies who hasn't been signed. But
they got C.J. Mosley as well.
C.J.
Who's a
Mosley-
huge playmaker for them.
they lost Mr. Barr. but
Tremaine.
They got True, your boy. But Steve, and then, of course, I mean, at least one of my favorite, if not my favorite, HaHa was always my favorite. But Jamal Adams has now taken over HaHa because of HaHa's switching up on us. But I still love you, HaHa, no doubt. But Jamal Adams is one of the young star safeties in the league that I'm really a huge fan of. But enough Jets talk. What else is going on in the news, D?
Yeah, so obviously the news came out with Julian Edelman's thumb, popped up at his free camp
Popped
or
up
whatever.
at Pop Warner.
Yeah, right. So they're saying mild trauma in the thumb, 3 weeks out. We'll see though. You know,
Dang.
with him, he's a little older, so his injuries tend to linger.
Yeah, but he's also too. He's built different.
He is-
Like
he
I
is
feel like
built
a
different.
thumb. He's gonna look at a thumb and be like, "Coach, get out of
I
here.
know,
I'm
straight
getting
up,
in there. I don't
straight
need my thumb." to
It's
catch
off season
stuff."
right now. I mean, not really off season, but for these vets, it's off season
Yeah.
until season starts, right?
Definitely,
So
he's gonna have enough time to rest up. I think
yeah.
he'll be a big
like everyone
focal
even saying
point.
with Todd Gurley, he's not going to play preseason. He's
Yeah.
not.
Oh, no
you know?
doubt.
So if anyone's expecting to see him, like they shouldn't.
And
so,
I'd be happy to do that because that just is just even healthier by the time season rolls around.
Yeah, speaking of Todd Gurley, on the other side of the freeway in LA, we got Melvin Gordon, and we've got some major issues there with his contract. And obviously, his camp has put out that he's going to hold out unless he gets traded
Yeah.
or he gets a new contract. So
they're both sides are bullying each other. One side is saying we're not budging. The other side has said that we're leaving or we're holding out.
So let me ask you this. We have Lev Bell, who is very questionable, obviously, taking a year off, but he's ready to play. He got his contract, and then we got a Melvin Gordon, he could hold out all year long like Le'Veon Bell did if he doesn't get traded and he doesn't get a new contract. So are you willing to take that risk at like 6 or 7 first round pick, 6th or 7th pick? You got Melvin Gordon and Lev Bell right there. Would you rather take Lev Bell or Melvin Gordon right now?
I'm going Le'Veon Bell. The only reason I say that is because of what Lev Bell did to me last year.
Yeah.
And that's the position Melvin Gordon is in this year. And it is the worst thing ever to have a player that can and willingly won't play for their team because of that contract dispute. And hey, I'm on the player side too. They put on a show. They should get paid maximum amount of dollars, especially a talent like MG and Le'Veon Bell and stuff. But at the same time, you're hurting my fantasy squad big time. I know you're hurting my championship run. So with that being said, I really would have to go with the guy that's locked in and I know that's going to play and is hungry to play, has been off for a whole year. Whereas Melvin Gordon, I mean, I'm sure you saw last year, he was involved with Le'Veon Bell and Le'Veon's corner that whole holdout last year, saying, you know, I know what team Le'Veon's going to. He was tweeting, Melvin Gordon was tweeting all types of stuff about what Le'Veon Bell was doing. He was really eyeing how Le'Veon Bell handled that situation. And I definitely think Melvin Gordon is not scared to go that same route. So
when you look at AB, you know, got himself traded out and got a new contract at the same time. Like, you know, things like that. It's more turning into a players' league because the NBA has turned into a players' league. So now these NFL players are being like
entitled and like, you know, I want to do the same thing, and all the power to them. You know?
They're making the money. You know, they're the ones filling those seats. So
and then at the end of the day, it's making them happy, and hopefully that
organization.
Yeah. So anyhow, but that'll be interesting to play out, and I definitely am scared to take Melvin Gordon only because of that holdout reason. As crazy as that is, you know, I would love to say that he'll be back by season starts right after training camp, but we can't guarantee that. So until I see that he has a 5-year contract, I'm probably gonna steer clear from Melvin Gordon. As sad as that is, because he's a Wisconsin boy, that's my guy. I love MG so much.
Looking at keeper leagues or dynasty leagues, whole different ballgame.
Totally.
Whole different ballgame.
Totally different.
He still is a top 5 player to me. I still would take him. You know, I mean, obviously, I would take David Johnson over him. They're kind of in that same range right there.
Well, you know, and just to touch base too, Zeke. You know, Zeke's top 3 drafted this year. You know, he's a top 3 draft pick, and it's another one of those things that's really, really scary. That's like,
the guy wants to press charges on him. So I mean,
for Zeke,
the security guard,
really,
yeah.
Wow, that's new news. I just knew that, you know, he was planning on probably holding out too because he wants a new contract. 24th birthday yesterday. Zeke's very, very young. He still has 2 years on his contract, so he's trying to get a new contract. And the Cowboys also are not budging. They're like, they got Dak and Amari. They got 2 people in line before Zeke's even supposed to get paid. Zeke's, you know, huffing and puffing right now that he
is the focal point of the offense, though.
And you know, who's the black and mild Hennessy? Is that Shannon Sharp? Shannon Sharp. He, the other day, I was watching him, and he said that he gave a stat out that, you know, the Cowboys are like 28-6 or something like that. The record's 20 plus games to -10 on when Zeke has 20 plus carries. You know, and he was just preaching the fact that he is the absolute. If they don't feed Zeke, they don't win, you know, and then that's what scares me about guys like Amari Cooper going in this year too, because if Zeke doesn't play for them, that really hurts. And yes, maybe Amari gets more opportunity, but at the same time,
Dak has shown to not be able to play without a running game.
Yeah, that's why like I'm very high on Amari Cooper, but if Zeke's not playing with that Cowboys team, I have a full different opinion on where I'm taking Amari and if I even want Amari or anybody on that
Well,
Cowboys
not in the
offense.
second round because that's kind of where you have to get him.
Exactly.
Maybe early third.
Yeah. I've been able to snag him as my third pick a couple times now, which I'm not complaining about unless they don't have Zeke. It's a whole different ballgame. But anyhow, that's another contract dispute that hopefully plays out because it'd be great to have a young Zeke on your fantasy football team.
Yeah, for sure. But anywho, let's talk about what we'll be covering today. We want to talk about draft strategies. Obviously, we are coming around the corner with draft season, and there's so many different ways to do a draft. There truly is, multiple different options. The most popular usually is running back. So today we want to just kind of go through a few mock drafts that we did and talk about our draft strategy and what we thought worked best, what we thought our team turned out better with, what's the positives, what's the negatives. So we got running back, we got receiver, one receiver, one running back, or vice versa, and then a tight end early on as well, like a Travis Kelce or Zach Ertz, Greg Kittle, or George Kittle, I'm sorry. But, yeah, man, so you want to start with running backs today?
Yes. I mean, I think it's, like you said, it probably is one of the most popular. It's definitely one that I'm not all the way about. I last year in our Keeper League actually kept Lev Bell and Todd Gurley, which I thought was unbeatable and nobody could touch me. And hey, maybe it would have been if Lev Bell played and Todd Gurley didn't get hurt at the end of the year and I didn't trade Todd Gurley. But anyhow, I personally, my favorite is 1-1. I love the one running back, one receiver. But before we get there, why don't we start with the running back? Did you do one of those drafts, two running backs? So how did your team turn out doing a two running back to back?
So after all this Melvin Gordon talk and saying that I would kind of stay away from him.
But it's still early, so even if you drafted him, it's just
I took Melvin Gordon. He went to 9. He fell to 9, and
which is a fall.
It is. So I snagged him. It was either him or who else was I thinking? Maybe like a Julio Jones. But I was really going for the top running back right now. So behind that, I followed up with Todd Gurley at 16. So obviously, I love Todd Gurley. I think Todd Gurley is still a top 3 player. He's falling in a lot of mock drafts, and I think by season start, I think he'll be back in the early first round personally, and I'm praying he's not so that I can snag him in every single draft this year. So I, followed up with Adam Thielen in the 3rd round. We were kind of talking about Adam Thielen this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very iffy on him. Obviously, he started out the season ridiculously hot and was the number 1 receiver for most of fantasy year. He did fall off with a couple less than 5-point performances at the end of the year, and we did see a big upgrade to Diggs, Kyle Rudolph, and Dalvin Cook with the switch of the offense coordinator. So that being said, Diggs and Thielen are neck and neck right there. So it's one or the other. You're not going to get both of them, but they're both going around the same time, just like all the Rams receivers. It's like you got to pick one of them, and it's
so true.
You're not sure which one you want to take. So this one I did take Adam Thielen because obviously we've seen what he can do.
He's a reception monster. He gets open. He scores touchdowns. I mean, you can't ask for much more. No. Except, like you mentioned, their new offensive coordinator, it's so run heavy that there's a lot of play action plays, which is Kyle Rudolph and Diggs Central. But it's just, Thielen is that good, so he can make anything happen, and he's going to be a part of that offense. So, like you said, it's a swing and hit for either one. You're shooting for the stars.
You truly are, and after that, I really wanted to follow up with another receiver. I just unfortunately didn't because I love having a tight end early on. I might have drafted him a little bit too early in this one because I did snag him in a couple rounds later, or about a round later in a couple other drafts, but I went with O.J. Howard at tight end.
Love it. That's probably my favorite value tight end in this draft. Get him anywhere from the 4th to 6th round. 6 being on the very
6
lucky
is where
end.
I would like to get him.
Exactly.
But this one, it was a 5th.
And just to touch on this kind of strategy too, you go running back. You're already at the not lower tier, but 2nd to 3rd tier of receivers now. And then you go and draft a tight end after your first receiver pick. So you now are not really struggling, but you are at a hurt for a receiver. And then at this point, I don't know who was out there. So who would be your next pick, Dill?
So after O.J. Howard, I obviously wanted to go receiver.
Sure.
But James White was at the top of the board.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'll take James White as my flex because on any given week, he could score 20 plus, 30 points, scoring 3 touchdowns.
And just a really quick, what pick were you again? Number 9?
Number 9.
So we actually, just a really quick rewind, we did a crazy draft kickoff party for our new league. Amazing group of guys. I'm super excited.
Shout out to
shout out
12.
The 12. You already know. So
the chosen 12.
So we actually, drew our names out of a hat for our order. And Dylan has the 9th pick. I have the 5th pick. So we actually last night or the last couple of nights we've actually been doing mock drafts off our current draft position. Yeah. And so at 9 you're able to get these guys. So my point is now with you drafting going James White at 9 or at your what is this, your 5th or 6th pick? 5th pick. 5th pick, yeah. 5th pick, at 9 that you're wrapping back up in like 4 to 6 picks, right? 6 picks. Yeah. So you're like probably looking at another receivers in that tier.
There was a group of receivers that you're like
I could probably grab while still grabbing I know both of our favorite tight ends this year. So I like that strategy, but it just goes to show how scary and risky that those receivers when you don't draft them are.
Yeah, it is because at that point you're kind of fishing. So I go off of potential. Once again, we talked about Robbie Anderson earlier. I want Robbie Anderson to be my wide receiver 2, which I think he will well finish below wide receiver 24. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I think he can be in that for sure 15 to 20 range, which I'm okay with my second receiver. That being said, I needed to follow up with another receiver. I went with a guy that's like we've always talked about. I'd rather have a number 1 in an offense than a number 2 in a pretty good offense. Mm-hmm. So I went with Corey Davis, hoping that Mariota can get his shit together this year, being on a contract year, having to prove himself. Now that there's Ryan Tannehill there, there's probably a shorter leash for Marcus Mariota. With that being said, he needs Corey Davis to produce. He truly needs him to step up.
And I just saw, too, A.J. Brown, their rookie stud receiver, pulled up with a pretty bad hamstring injury, and obviously early.
Struggled with hamstring.
He's already struggled with hamstring, so this really could be. I actually in that late night when we did, I drafted Corey Davis, too, with like my second bench spot because I have high hopes for him too. He's just drafted top 5 or top 10. I forget, but I think number 7 overall. But anyhow, I have high hopes for Corey Davis, and if it's not this year, I don't think it's going to be any year.
No, it's not. This is his make it or break it. And I'm sorry, before Corey Davis, I actually got a quarterback. I got Cam Newton.
Oh, Superman!
Quarterbacks were kind of flying off the board, so I felt like it was a need to grab him pretty early on. So going with Cam, I think in the 7th or 8th round, I feel like it's a little early, but I do think that Super Cam's coming back this year, like we talked about a couple of days ago. After Corey Davis, obviously, I had to figure out what I was going with next. I actually went with, Curtis Samuel to pair up with Cam Newton.
Nice.
Obviously, he showed
Moore was probably already gone at this point.
Yes, DJ Moore. That's who I really was hoping for. He got drafted right before. I think he was in that Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore range, and I thought I could get one of the two. DJ Moore got taken, so I had to go with Robbie Anderson. But after that, followed up with Emmanuel Sanders, who I think is going to have a great year. I think he's going to be a stud as usual.
And I've been missing him. Like I'm like at the point where I'm like,
he's
none of these receivers are, eye popping to me, and then I see you draft the man. I'm like, where the hell was
10,
he?
11, 12 rounds.
Me up. Yeah, late rounds where I'm just like, you could go either way, and then why not take a high upside guy like Emmanuel? But you got to scroll down a little bit, so don't sleep on scrolling down.
My highest recommendation is really building out your rankings in your draft room or be pre-draft because you can set your rankings.
Which you can do on your platform. So definitely.
So definitely highly recommend that because then you're getting your players at what ranking you think. Like I always have my computer next to me or mine printed out, but it's a lot easier if it's just edited in your platform and it's right there in front of you. Anyways, followed up with a Kareem Hunt, obviously being suspended for 8 games. He's going to come back that second half and be a beast as usual. There is a little concern for me because Nick Chubb is a beast as well. So I don't think he's going to be completely done. I think it's going to be more of a split. I think they're both going to have pretty productive end of the year. If anything does happen to Nick Chubb injury-wise or anything like that, and Kareem Hunt does become their 3-down back, game over. He's winning someone a championship. Jerick McKinnon, once again, he's a big, high-risk, high-reward guy. You don't know what's going to happen. They have multiple running backs in that offense, but he is the highest-paid running back that they have. So, that being said, and what he's done in the past, like that last year with the Vikings, you had him. You had him. You traded him for, I mean, a stud player because that's how good he was performing. I think it was a receiver or something. Odell. Because that's how good Jerick McKinnon was performing at that time, where it was hard to veto the trade because he had scored 30 points in 3 weeks in a row or something.
He even had
like
a 40-point game in that span. Yeah. And trading to a Vikings fan, of course, which is always
makes
better.
It a little easier.
Because even for that trade, he's telling Dylan, I need this guy. So I'm like, hey, I mean, what do you want from me?
He did come down to earth a little bit after that, but still, to be able to perform when given the opportunity, and then obviously I think Latavius Murray was hurt. That's why it was all him. But
all
he came back and it was split.
It was that 3 down back, and then Latavius did come back, and it was not split right away, but then got back to that. Yeah.
So he does have potential to score big points, and that's what you're asking for late
that was
round.
Before a year-long injury. So
he's
1 year back.
A lot of time to rest.
He has. He got hurt early.
Tevin Coleman's injury prone. Matt Breida's every running back on this offense is injury prone.
No doubt.
So,
it really is.
That being said, he's just one injury away from being a 3-down back.
Yeah, and in this area too where you drafted him, it's really tough because it's not really tough, but there's just those group of guys that are all hit or misses, and
maybe Deion Lewis.
Why
Lewis
not just take the shot?
5-round running back. Last year he was getting drafted in the 4th round, 5th round.
Yeah,
I would love to take a shot on him late in the 10th, 11th, 12th round, even if he doesn't have great games because Derrick Henry is a beast and he's a majority. But Deion Lewis is so elusive and he's a great 3rd-down back, So I don't think he's going to be done from the offense. It's just going to be very hit and miss weeks with the guy. But if anything did happen to Derrick Henry, I think he would be a lot more involved with the offense too. So once again, these last picks are just hit or misses. And my last pick, I went with Mecole Hardman. I should say my last bench spot.
Yeah.
With this whole Tyreek Hill thing, he's back obviously. They're not sure what they want to do with him from what I've been reading. Some people have been saying contract extension, $20+ million a year. Some people are saying they're maybe looking to trade him so they don't have to pay him $20+ million a year because they still don't feel 100% confident in him and sure what's going to happen, So, once again, this is just a homer pick. I'm just hoping that he works out because, they love speed on that offense. So, I think even if Tyreek Hill's on there, it just makes Mecole Hardman that much more dangerous because so much attention will be on Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Damian Williams. You have Sammy Watkins, who's coming back healthy,
who is actually on my fantasy squad for my 2 running backs.
All right.
Speaking of Sammy.
So, I got Cleveland defense, Brett Maher for my kicker. But, anywho, I think my team turned out pretty well doing running back. Running back receivers are a little scary, but I think that my squad would still get an A on my draft, and I think I would make it to the ship no problem.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, my 2 running back team would shit on yours. Here's mine, and I definitely think that this team is definitely playoff bound, if not super, or if championship bound. So my first pick,
and what pick are you?
I'm
again?
the 5th pick.
5th pick, that's right.
So with my first round pick, 5th overall, I picked your boy David Johnson. All right. Obviously, those top 4 running backs, I still haven't been able to land one of those top 4. Never do they fall to me at 5 out of the 5 or 6 mocks I've done at this position. So obviously, Zeke, Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, and Alvin Kamara all come off the board right before me. So I'm just like, if any one of those guys happen to fall to me, I'm taking them. But it hasn't happened yet, so I'm in that range of DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, and David Johnson area. So it's so hard to pass up on a guy with such high potential like David Johnson. He is in the latter age. He's 28 already, which is crazy. I remember when he was a rookie.
But he started out as a rookie, I think, at 23 or 24. So he was an older rookie. I think he was a 5-year senior.
That age doesn't scare me at all. Young offense. Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury now head of that offense. So definitely is going to make me it's got me interested. I know David Johnson always is shooting for that 1,000 yard.
He said he's doing it this year.
So and I could see it. I could see that offense running through David Johnson. So obviously don't need to preach on DJ. Drafted him 1st overall. Obviously first round, when you have that earlier, those top 5 picks, you got to wait quite a while to come back around. 15, so coming back around 15 picks later, I have the 20th pick. And I went ahead with my 2nd running back and drafted Dalvin Cook, who we already preached about a bit. I think this year he's coming in 100% healthy, which that was not the case last year. And yet, end of last year, he flourished. Did he not?
Yeah.
So I think going into this year with new offensive scheme and new offensive coordinator, it's built around the run game and Dalvin Cook, and I'm super, super intrigued by that offense as much as I hate the Vikings. So I drafted Dalvin Cook, and for me, like I was telling you earlier, to have Dalvin Cook as your number 2 running back, I don't think it gets better than that. I mean, you're usually drafting Dalvin as probably your number 1, your RB1.
So he's got top 5 potential.
Get in my rankings, I have David Johnson number 5 and Dalvin Cook number 10, which I could see Dalvin Cook going up to even 8 or 9 in my rankings. So for me, I drafted 2 of my top 10 running backs, and that is bread and butter in my eyes. But obviously, like we talked about, those receivers, that next tier of receivers, it hurts seeing that fall off. Obviously, 9 picks go by, and with my third round pick, this was an auto draft. Super bummed. I looked at these picks are 30 seconds, so they goes by so fast. So if you look away for 28 seconds, you look back, it's already gone. So anyhow, this was auto drafted. There's a tier of guys, receivers. I obviously drafting 2 running backs, wanted to go receiver for sure with this 3rd pick, and I did, but it was auto drafted. There's T.Y. Hilton,
not bad, though.
There's Amari Cooper, and there's A.J. Green. There's those 3 guys at that point in this draft that I was going between AJ Green and Amari Cooper. T.Y. the 3rd out of the 2. But if you look at my rankings, I have T.Y. Hilton at 10, I have Amari Cooper at 11, and I have AJ Green at 12. I mean, pretty right there.
It is.
My auto draft actually went right to my rankings, which was T.Y. Hilton at 10 overall. So I actually drafted T.Y. Hilton, which you love, I love. They're in a high potent offense. Love Andrew Luck. I think T.Y. actually flourishes this year because there are some other pieces that are going to take away from T.Y. being the focal point of that offense. So I think that'll just make it to him. It'll be to his advantage. So T.Y., my third overall player, my first receiver, and then coming back around, I wanted to draft another receiver, and the last guy basically out there was Brandon Cooks. So Brandon Cooks, I have ranked him at number 16, still a top 20 guy in my eyes, so I'm all about that. I mean, like you kind of sold me, Dill, on if Todd Gurley isn't like he was, let's just say, they're gonna start airing it out more. Jared Goff also on a contract year, I believe.
Yep.
I think he's going to put it up there. Brandon Cooks has the speed. We know what Brandon Cooks is about. I think this is really Brandon Cooks' year to be a big part of that offense. So I'm excited about watching Brandon Cooks.
The funny thing is everyone thought he had a down year. But once again,
he didn't.
5 years in a row, 1,000 yards.
Over 1,000 yards.
Over 1,000
and
yards.
that's what's weird is I didn't think he had that. I obviously checked his stats, and I was like, wow, I wouldn't have guessed that because he's just so sneaky. Every
Robert
week gets
Woods,
it by.
Over 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
It's just these Rams receivers are quietly really, really good.
And that's what I'm excited about when they start lighting it up and throwing the ball and we actually see it. It's like they've already passed that 1,000-yard mark. They've already been doing it.
Yeah.
So to have a wide receiver, too, that I have really high upside for in Brandon Cooks, I'm happy. That was my 4th overall pick. So now I have 2 receivers and 2 running backs. Obviously, I drafted the 2 running backs first. So that's kind of how it played out when it came to I still filled in those key 2 running back, 2 receivers. Like Dylan went 1 receiver and then tight end, which is super risky, but at the same time he's going to flourish at that tight end position where I waited until the way later rounds to draft the tight end. So what I did with my 5th overall pick was risky, but wouldn't change it for the world. At 5th pick, at 53rd pick overall, I drafted Aaron Rodgers. I didn't want to let him go because I knew that by the next time I drafted, he would be gone. So I felt the value was there, and I pulled the trigger on my guy. So after that, obviously, drafting.
It's not bad, though.
Drafting 5th round. I mean, we know Aaron Rodgers in our last 2 years have gone top 2 rounds, if not the 1st round. So
I drafted him in the 1st round like 3 years ago.
To get Aaron Rodgers, his value is the best of his entire career right here in fantasy football, besides, where he came in behind Brett Favre. So I'm taking Aaron Rodgers. If I can get him in the 5th round, I'm pulling the trigger all day. And in our keeper league in specific, I would love to be able to land Aaron Rodgers. So I'm trying to see how I can pull that off. But everyone knows that, so that'll be really tough. But anyhow, I followed that pick up with another receiver. So this will be my sixth round pick. I did receiver, obviously, because when you take receivers in the 3rd and 4th round, they're a little iffy. You're a little worried compared to your top 2 picks, your top 2 running backs. So I went with someone that I have huge upside on. I know, another fantasy genius in Mr. Mike Hall. He's super high on Calvin Ridley as well, and it just goes to show. I mean, a rookie to be able to put up 10+ touchdowns. Off such small dosage too. I mean, Calvin Ridley's upside is unbelievable. Obviously, the only thing that scares me is the other receivers in that offense, but I think it just helps Calvin Ridley. So Calvin Ridley in my slot, I'm taking all day. I would be a little worried if Calvin Ridley was my number 2 receiver, but to have Calvin Ridley in my slot, I'm happy.
I don't think
content.
it's a worry though. I think it's
I don't know if it's a worry either. Mentally, for me, I don't look at it and am stoked.
Yeah.
I should say, but I don't think it's a worry either because he'll be able to put 10 to 40 points. We've seen him put up 40 points. So Dalvin in my slot, I'm taking all day. But to your point too, I don't know if it's a worry. It's just to me, I don't feel as comfortable as a Brandon Cooks as my number 2.
Because I was thinking about it today. I'm like, man, I'm worried about drafting this guy because he was my 5th or 6th running back last year, or he's my 5th or 6th receiver. Now I'm drafting to be my 2nd or 3rd one.
I know, it's like, weird.
It's weird, but at the end of the day, when you're
that's
a
fantasy,
champion.
Though.
Even though I wasn't champion.
I was gonna say, well, are you?
when you're a strong player, you're always building championship teams.
No doubt.
At the end of the year, you're like, man, I wish I could keep my team because you have so many good players. Like I have Dalvin Cook, Todd Gurley, David Johnson
on your keeper. Keeper, yeah, no doubt.
Chubb.
Anyhow, so actually after that, it would be my first bench position, and I went receiver again, just simply because. For some reason, I watched an interview of Sammy Watkins this year, and just the way he spoke about how he's feeling and how he's feeling on the offense and how his body's reacting and everything. I'm extremely high on Sammy Watkins. Obviously, I was even more extremely high before Tyreek Hill when Tyreek Hill wasn't. What?
You said Sammy Hawkins.
Hawkins? Why
Hawkins.
You should have. So. Sammy Watkins, sorry about that. Before Tyreek Hill was suspended or going to be suspended, I was way more high on Sammy, obviously being the number 1 guy. But still, I don't think that Tyreek Hill coming back is going to all of a sudden drop off Sammy Watkins at all. I think Sammy's still going to be involved in that offense. And to have him as my first bench player, I'm okay with because, he's just going to fill in if he needs to. And I think this is going to be his coming back here to where he's going to finally be comfortable in that offense and get it going. So he's my first bench spot with another receiver, but that's where things got a little edgy because I needed another running back. I only have 2 running backs on my team. I went now 4 receivers in a row because I was worried about receivers. I'm sorry, 2 receivers in a row because Aaron Rodgers was in there. So after Sammy Watkins, a little while's passed, and I actually went another running back, my first running back on the bench, and that's Latavius Murray. That's kind of what we were working with down at the tail end of this draft. And
I think a lot of people are sleeping on him too.
I think. Exactly. I think that, and I know you've been high on him through the offseason, but he definitely could fill that Mark Ingram role, and why not take a shot on a guy? Because in this range, there's really not a lot of options. So, boom or bust, really. And I felt like, he was the best guy to take a shot on at that position. So shortly after that, I went with Miles Sanders, another guy who I know you're higher on, which I went on with him simply with upside as well because he's obviously it's going to be an RBBC between Jordan Howard, supposedly Miles Sanders, and then the plethora of other running backs they have back there. So hopefully,
Darren Sproles now.
Yeah, hopefully Miles Sanders shines through and becomes a their guy. Even if it's halfway through the year, he's on my bench. And that's something. One thing is you got to be so patient with guys and. That's something I don't even practice because I get so uncomfortable week 1, week 2 because I don't see what I like and that's it. I cut the guys. And then what do you know? 2 weeks later, they're the starter and they're balling out. And I am just like kicking myself in the ass about it. Be patient with guys. At least wait half a year, seriously, before dropping them because anything could happen. The guy in front of them could get hurt. They could just flourish. Whatever could happen. So went Miles Sanders with that second running back on my bench. And then shortly after that, I went another running back just because, I want to have that balance. And that was Austin Eckler. Another guy who, at this range, if anything happens with Melvin Gordon like we had talked about, this could be the steal of the draft in my opinion. Eckler, when he's come in for Melvin Gordon in the past, has won people fantasy weeks undoubtedly. I mean, he's a stud. He is a great fill-in. He isn't the best 3-down back because he's little. He's a great pass catcher, no doubt, but we play in PPR, so I'm down for that. So Eckler, he could fill in anytime. If Melvin Gordon, and even we've seen Eckler have huge games when Melvin Gordon's in just because he's that explosive. So I think it's a good bench player to have, especially when you're lacking running back depth. So Eckler was my third running back on the bench, and then I went another guy on my bench, pick number 125, Devin Funchess, a big body target for Andrew Luck. I think I like what he can do on this Colts offense this year. It's to be interesting how they tie in, and I know Andrew Luck loves those big body guys that he can feel comfortable putting the ball up to. Obviously, he has those speedsters, that can burn people downfield. So I think Devin Funchess could see some serious red zone usage, getting down there in that end zone. T.Y. Hilton and those who's the young buck? The fast young buck? Paris Campbell. Get him down the field, and obviously Marlon Mack, and then I could see Devin Funchess and those tight ends eating in that red zone. So, and then with my last pick, obviously not including defense and kicker, with my last pick, I went with a guy who also, I said Austin Eckler is the steal of this draft, Peyton Barber.
Yeah.
Peyton Barber is being praised by Bruce Arians, and everyone coming out of Tampa Bay. Yes, Ronald Jones is always going to get that hype because he's the young guy that they drafted. He did build 10 pounds of muscle. Ronald Jones is someone that I am more intrigued on.
The biggest thing about Ronald Jones is nobody was worried. I mean, coming out of college, he was supposed to be this fast, elusive guy. So now he's trying to become a whole different guy of being bigger.
But obviously that was proven not to work. Like, his elusiveness is not as fast as the NFL is,
Yeah,
so
but I just don't see him being successful. I truly don't.
And with all this too, I mean, Tampa Bay is saying Peyton Barber could be a 3-down back. We know he can catch the ball out of the backfield. Yeah. He's a big boy. He can run through the tackles, no problem.
I love drafting him. I draft him almost every single time.
To draft him as my last pick for a guy that could potentially be a 3-down back in an offense who Bruce Arians is a running... I mean, and don't get me wrong, he airs it out as well, but he's a run-first type coach. I'm super excited to see what Peyton Barber and that offense can do. I'm really interested in the Bucs this year. So for me, I'm drafting Bucs players because of my interest in them and how I think Jameis on a contract year, Mike Evans obviously a baller, new coach Bruce Arians. I've read a lot of stuff saying, don't expect Bruce Arians to be their savior, this, and that. I'm a huge Bruce Arians fan, and I'm excited to see what kind of culture he brings in there and how he gets these players to get the best out of them, just like he did in Arizona, out of David Johnson, putting Larry Fitzgerald in the slot, getting the best out of these guys. So I'm excited. So that was my draft. I definitely like going 2 running backs in a row because that's a very tough position, and so to have those locked in, it's a great feeling, but I still am yet to get to my favorite draft strategy, and that's 1-1. But before we get there, do you want to jump to 2 receivers?
Yeah, we'll go receiver. I'll blow through this one, and we'll just kind of talk about my team after. First pick went DeAndre Hopkins. Thankfully fell to me at number 9. I think that is an absolute steal. He's obviously 99 overall in Madden, so he is technically the best receiver in the NFL right now. Following up with Juju, which, we talked about earlier, Pittsburgh leaving a lot of targets on the table. A lot of them are obviously going to go to Juju on top of what he already did last year. So I could see Juju balling out, of course, even making top 10 receiver for the year. But want to talk more coming down to that 3rd round. Now I obviously need a running back. I kind of went down a little bit on the rankings and picked up Mark Ingram because I see tons of potential in him. Obviously, he performed really well with the Saints' high-powered offense. Ravens are not as high-powered offense as the Saints, obviously, but they do want to run the ball. They're built for running the ball, and I think they're going to give him the ball a ton. I do think Mark Ingram will be a 3-down back for Baltimore and only come out when he's tired. So
you drafted him high.
Very high.
3rd round.
Very, very high.
Wow, I've gotten Mark Ingram in rounds 4 to 6.
Yeah. So, like I said, I reached up on him. But I followed up with Josh Jacobs, who, funny, is higher rank than Mark Ingram. But I really wanted to get Mark Ingram on my team as my... it's all about touches in fantasy football, and I know he's going to get a ton of them.
Yep.
Same with Josh Jacobs. So I followed up with 2 running backs that I know are going to get a lot of touches to follow with my top 2 receivers. So they may not be top names, big names, but I do think they will perform and win me weeks. Following up on that, once again, I love tight ends more than anything. I think that having a good tight end really helps you get over that mediocre team, good team to a great team, to a championship team. So I went with Evan Ingram. Right now it's O.J. Howard and Evan Ingram in that range right there. And I do think I would prefer O.J. over Evan Ingram, but they're both, pretty similar. And they, they're last year I actually had both of them, and they they score around the same amount every week. Honestly, they get pretty much the same amount of targets, catches, yards. They're both big play guys. Obviously, Evan Ingram's a little smaller, faster. OJ Howard's a little bit bigger and very good in the red zone. So,
bully.
Yeah, exactly. And with the Giants' offense is a little bit less. I'm not as positive in their offense as I am with the Buccaneers, like you said earlier. I think Bruce Arians is really going to maximize everyone's potential on that offense, which means OJ Howard, who is a first-round pick, high first-round pick, he's obviously got tons of potential. Evan Ingram, though, he's shown that he's bald, but he has tons of injury issues. Mm-hmm. Not to say OJ Howard doesn't either. But anyways, moving on to my next pick, I definitely was in this range of either getting another running back or receiver. Obviously, I have two of the best receivers in the league, so I'm like, I got to follow up with the running back. In this range, obviously, there's not much out there. There's, the maybe Chris Carson. I think he might have been drafted right before me, but there's question marks there with Rashad Penny and with his injury history. And then, like I said, Rashad Penny. And then there's a couple other guys I can't really think of, but Tariq Cohen is who I went with, who, once again, I'm a huge David Montgomery fan, so it's kind of up in the air with Tariq Cohen and David Montgomery. Tariq Cohen definitely balled last year, but there were those weeks where he was completely quiet. So just like we kind of talked about Calvin Ridley earlier being that third guy, you feel a lot more comfortable with that rather than your number 2 guy. I feel the same way about Tariq Cohen. I don't know if I would be as confident with him as my RB2, but as my flex/bench, totally okay with it.
Couldn't agree more.
Following up with that, obviously I felt as if I needed another running back. I really didn't know where to go here. This one's a ballpark for me, and I went with Royce Freeman.
Rolls Royce.
He's a baller. We've seen how much of a baller is. He did look a little slow last year, obviously hampered by injuries. Philip Lindsay looked a lot faster, a lot more elusive, a lot quicker, essentially. And, he's not known to be quick, but he is known to be a big play guy and, score a lot of points, score a lot of touchdowns, and get a lot of rushing yards. So if he gets opportunity, I think he will be able to ball. And he has been with the first offense for majority of the offseason, even though Philip Lindsay just did come back. So they are splitting the ball 50-50 right now. But still, he has tons of opportunity there in Denver to be pretty successful.
And, the coaching staff came out and they said this year they plan on Royce and Philip Lindsay to work as Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman did in Atlanta. So with that being said, and if that does play out like that, I would take one of the two all day.
Yeah, and once again, you're trying to get Philip Lindsay in the 4 to 5 round compared to the 7 or 8 round with Royce Freeman, So if they're going 50-50, I would take the risk on a lower guy, right?
100%, especially Philip's coming off a broken wrist injury. So, not the worst thing ever.
It's not, but it kept DJ out all year. So, anywho, after that, I followed up with another high potential guy, Dante Pettis. Obviously, he had a couple nice games last year. From everything I've read and seen, he's been that number 1 guy at 49ers camp. Other than George Kittle, obviously. He looks really good. He looks really fast. His route running is really defined. He's really been working on that all season. He's always been known as a speed guy. So he wants everyone to know, I'm not just a speed guy. I can run routes. I can catch the ball. I can be a playmaker. I can be a number 1 receiver in an offense.
And no one's a speed guy next to Marquise Godwin.
Exactly, right?
Or Goodwin. Marquise Goodwin. So they got the speed already.
They got tons of speed on that offense. 49ers are...
And I'm about Deebo Samuel.
I know,
He's about to show up. He's really going
He's their possession receiver.
He's shooting for Rookie of the Year this year.
Okay.
Which, offensive rookie. But, obviously everybody wants to aspire to be that, but he was dead serious saying that. A
couple years ago, he was supposed to be the number 1 guy. Every Madden draft I did,
he was number 1. 100%.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, so...
Balled out.
And then DK all of a sudden popped up because he's all ripped and everything. But at the end of the day...
DK is a specimen. Just you wait. DK's about to ball out this year. DK's being undrafted, and he's going to be drafted in the top 5 rounds next year. Mark my words.
All right.
Mark my words.
After that, obviously, I went Rams defense a little earlier, a couple rounds earlier, actually. We haven't talked about defenses, but I do feel as if Rams are going to be dominant again as a defense, so I would love to have them on my team. I had them last year. Didn't have to worry about defense all year. It's just like the tight end position. If you have a solid tight end, you don't have to worry. It's great. If you have a solid defense, you don't have to worry. It's great as well. Streaming defenses is the easiest position to stream on a weekly basis, though. So if you don't get one of your top defenses that you would want to get, then it's totally cool to just stream week by week. Moving down, Mecole Hardman again, Dion Lewis, Greg Olsen I followed up with on my last pick. I do think that Greg Olsen has, once again, a lot of potential as a tight end. He's shown that when he is healthy and he plays, he is a touchdown monster, and Cam Newton trusts him. So having that Greg Olsen hookup is always a beautiful thing. But once again, I really did like this team a lot. I think it is pretty comparable to the running back. I mean, it just really depends on what you're looking for and what you think is more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, we haven't even talked about, both of our favorites yet. But I'll let you take the floor now and go ahead and
well, unfortunately, the receiver one I did was where Tyreek Hill was still suspended, so it was a little outdated. But just to touch base on it, I drafted Davante Adams first, and then I wrapped back around and drafted Antonio Brown. So to have Davante Adams and Antonio Brown, I mean, two of my top 5-6 guys on my receiver rankings, I'm taking that all day.
Okay.
So obviously, my running backs were a little iffier, and this was a different draft than you, obviously, but I drafted Mark Ingram as well. I had Kenyon Drake, and I had Lamar Miller. So I drafted 3 running backs in a row after that to make up for the lack of running backs that I drafted.
Yep,
so I felt pretty comfortable with that. Antonio Brown, Davante Adams, and then Kenyon Drake, Mark Ingram, and Lamar Miller as my running backs. And then I also followed that up with Alshon Jeffrey. I got Tyreek Hill right after that, so this is a little bit skewed, obviously.
Right.
So that's why I don't want to talk too much about that one. But 2 receivers, I don't think is an issue. I really like the strength of the receivers that high. So to have 2 of those guys that are just absolute studs, and then to follow up with 2 guys that are RB1, 3 guys that are RB1s as well, the 2 receiver route, I think I like better than the 2 RB route, in my opinion.
I agree. And the reason why is because with running backs, a lot more injury prone than receivers. So receivers are definitely a lot less risky.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're kind of getting. It's also harder to find really good receivers. So on the waiver wire, how often are people fighting for a receiver at the top? Not very often.
Yeah.
How often are people fighting for that running back that had one big week? Every week.
Exactly.
So running backs, there definitely is a lot more opportunity there and a lot more options, in my opinion, with solid people or people that have more opportunity. There's only that few that get those amount of targets, those amount of catches, that much chemistry with their quarterbacks. So anyways, I do like the receiver better, and following up with running backs, and then, playing the field throughout the year.
Yeah.
And just picking up who you can.
Exactly.
But let's get to the really good stuff.
Exactly.
Let's get to what we both think is the best option on
draft strategy. That's 1-1. That's 1 running back, 1 receiver, and it's really tough to say, do you go receiver first or running back first? I think it's where you're at in your draft position.
Absolutely. Who's following to you?
Exactly.
So why don't we, for this one, go pick by pick?
Yeah.
You go your first, I'll go for my first pick, and vice versa.
So, for obviously, and like we said before, I have the 5th overall pick in this draft. Dylan has the 9th overall pick in this draft. So we based it off that, obviously. So, like I said before, those first 4 running backs come off the board every single time.
Yeah.
We know who. And then at 5th overall, I went David Johnson again. I mean, there's a lot of different routes you can go. I could reach a little bit, not reach, but go a couple picks down and get Melvin Gordon. I could get a DeAndre Hopkins or a Davante Adams. All of those very, very, and hey, I'm even gonna throw Le'Veon Bell in that mix too. Those are 5 guys that I'd consider taking over David Johnson. David Johnson, top of the running back board at this position, though he's my top ranked running back right after those top 4. So David Johnson again, 5th overall. Sorry to keep it the same, but it gets better. Trust me, Dill.
So I actually did a little bit different this time because once again, I think he has top 1 potential, honestly. He's been the number 1 receiver multiple years in a row. But I went with Antonio Brown at number 9. I just think that going to the Raiders offense, they gave him a lot. The offense is going to be based around him.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna throw him the ball. He's going to get tons of looks, and they're going to feed him just like the Steelers did because that's what was so successful there. He opened up that offense for everyone else, in my opinion.
And you look at his stats, and it's like, how could you ever discount this guy? How could you ever? No matter if he's on a new team, no matter if he's playing as the only player on a team. I mean, whatever. But anyhow, so I love that AB pick, and to think with my last draft, I had AB as my 2nd receiver.
I know, it's great.
2 receiver route is not a bad idea.
It's not.
Anyhow, you drafted AB receiver with your first pick. So Dale, why don't you? Because you follow up and with that next pick, who did you end up taking?
I went TG. Todd Gurley.
300.
In the 2nd round, Todd Gurley, I'll take him every single time. But moving forward, I definitely think that by draft time, Todd Gurley will be a first-round pick, and I will have to go with him first round. Antonio Brown still might fall to me in that second round.
It could be flipped almost at this point.
Exactly.
It could be Todd Gurley at 9
Yeah.
and then AB at that follow-up.
Exactly. So either or, if I do go receiver first or running back first, it really depends who's on the board. Like if DeAndre Hopkins falls to me or Devontae falls to me, I'm probably going receiver first. But if both those guys are gone, I might go with Todd Gurley, Joe Mixon maybe, you know?
Really quick, just on Joe, I mean, to me, was so high with that Jonah Williams pick coming into this year. He's out for the year, possibly.
Yeah.
Their O-line was shaky last year.
It was.
I am
but they,
a little worrisome.
Not huge upgrades, but they definitely have upgraded it a little bit. And what he did last year with what he was working with, I do see him doing all right. You know, maybe that's why I would love to have him as my number 2.
And that's what I was just going to say. But another one of those guys that as my number 1 running back, I'm like, kind of nervous, but as my RB2, I'm sitting back chilling. So it's kind of funny how that plays out, but definitely an RB1, so good. I definitely could go either way. But so yeah, Dill, you went those 2 guys. You went TG 300, AB, not in any specific order, but those are your two 1-and-1s. Like I said, drafted David Johnson, so now I wrap back around with my number 20 overall pick. Second round, he was at the very top of the board, and what do you know? He shot from me taking him with the 8-game suspension at round 9 overall to now jumping up to be my second overall pick, and that's Tyreek Hill. I think this Kansas City Chiefs offense is ridiculous with Tyreek Hill. I mean, they're ridiculous without him too.
With Pat Mahomes.
But I mean, to have Pat Mahomes and Tyreek Hill together is just peanut butter and jelly, spaghetti and meatballs. You know, it's just perfect. So, what did I do? I wrapped back around right after I drafted Tyreek Hill and got really crazy. This is not something that I would usually do by any means. I am all about going running back, receiver, or receiver, running back, and then do the same thing the next 2 rounds. So I lock in those 2 running backs and 2 receivers with my first 4 picks. That is my best recommendation of what to do. But when you draft a Tyreek Hill with your second overall pick, and then you still have a Pat Mahomes out there with your 3rd overall pick, it is so hard not to pull the trigger. Me, I think you know too. I mean, you know how much I love it. I know how much you love it. Having that quarterback-wide receiver duo, especially one of the best, in my opinion, it's like a DeAndre Hopkins, Deshaun Watson. It's like amazing. A Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers. All of those guys are guys that I would do this for, and I did it. I pulled the trigger. I got Pat Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and David Johnson. So I went a little rogue and drafted a quarterback 3rd round, which is crazy, but we'll see how it plays out if it's Pat Mahomes. So
we've seen him get drafted in the 1st round. So
exactly. So 3rd is almost not a discount, but it's a great value.
Well, now you have 3 top players at each position, which is huge. It's just like taking a tight end in the 3rd round. It's the same thing for a quarterback.
Yeah, in my opinion, a quarterback doubles the amount of points, which is crazy. But anyhow, 3rd round pick, Dill. Where did you end up going?
I ended up going. Once again, at this point, it's up in the air. I don't know if I'm going running back or receiver. It depends on value. And I'm looking at AJ Green right now. I'm like, if he falls to me, I'm snagging him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm snagging him. And sure as shit, you took Pat Mahomes. So that means AJ Green went down 1 more spot. Obviously, you're a few ahead of me, or I guess this is a different draft. But anywho,
same position.
I grabbed AJ Green with my 3rd pick just because, once again, he's shown that he's getting in the older side, but he's still producing when he's healthy. It is scary that he's coming off a big injury, but, you can't pass on talent, in my opinion. And if he comes back week 1, then I'm happy. I've got 2 of the best receivers in the league. Yeah, a little older, but, it's okay. They've, established themselves in the NFL, and they know how to play. So they know how to get open. They know how to score touchdowns. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Following up with that, I want another running back. So I went receiver, running back, receiver, and now another running back. Nice. I want Mark Ingram.
Love it.
Once again, it shows we're both pretty high on Mark Ingram in that range. He is going to be it's going to be a battle. One of us is going to have to draft him earlier than other, and it sounds like I'm willing to draft him a little bit earlier than you.
You definitely are. Definitely are.
So I might end up with him, and I'm going to be happy with that, especially if I have a 1-2 punch, Todd Gurley, Mark Ingram. I'll take that all day long. So speaking of my 4th round pick, it's wrapping around to you at your 5th pick. What do you what'd you go
so with? My 4th pick, actually. So I have drafted David Johnson, Tyreek Hill, Pat Mahomes. So my 4th pick, I actually went with Josh Jacobs to fill my 2nd running back position. This was tough. I definitely saw receivers out there that I liked, but then it came to the point where I looked at where my next pick would be, and the running backs that I thought would be out there were much less significant than the receivers that I saw that would be out there. So I pulled the trigger on a guy that signed his rookie deal. That's now in the past. Is basically the guy. Mike Mayock already came out and said he's the 3-down back. That's what they drafted him for. Love Josh Jacobs. Love his story. All about it. I'm riding that Josh Jacobs train all the way. So he's my second running back behind David Johnson. I'm stoked on that. And to follow that up, it's pretty funny. Like you said, it's going to be a battle. These are different drafts, obviously, but I have Mark Ingram in my flex. So when did you draft Mark? 4th round? 40. I got Mark at 53 overall. So you definitely are willing to pull the trigger a little higher. I have value on guys a little bit more, but not to say if there's all those other running backs are gone, I would pull the trigger on Mark Ingram early because that's how our drafts go. They go in runs, so running backs will just go, and then all of a sudden,
well, in fantasy, you got to get who you want. You can't wait.
Exactly, you have to pull the trigger. So in this case, though, I had him fall to me in a sense. Mark Ingram I got in the 5th round, which I'll take because now I have him as my 3rd running back as comparison to him being your 2nd. I like that a lot. So, but now I'm hurting at receiver. I still only have one wideout in Tyreek Hill. So, like I said, I went Josh Jacobs, followed that up with Mark Ingram. This is now the 5th round, and wrapping right back to you, D.
Where I take David Montgomery, who I don't know if he's going to get as much opportunity as Josh Jacobs, but I do think he is going to perform really well in that offense. I mean, they're, once again, raving about him, saying how great of a pass catcher he is, and the biggest thing. And I question, like, why did they get rid of Jordan Howard? This guy's a beast. He's gone over 1,000 yards multiple seasons. Like, he's a beast. Obviously, he just didn't fit really in their scheme because he couldn't catch the ball. He couldn't. They literally had to take him out on 3rd down and put Tariq Cohen in, which hurt Tariq Cohen's value too because they knew that when he came in, they were passing the ball essentially, you know? So they wanted someone like David Montgomery to be able to keep in on 3rd downs and catch the ball. So I do think that they're going to use both of them. I think they're both going to be on the field at the same time. I don't think it's going to be swap as much as everyone's saying. I did draft Tariq Cohen in that other draft. So like I said, I do think that both these guys will perform in this offense. It's a really running back oriented offense. As Mitch Trubisky, he's not the best downfield thrower, I should say. I mean, he makes some good plays here and there, but at the end of the day, he likes that middle game and run game. You know, run game to open up the play action, middle game. Anywho, following up, it goes to you now, right?
I think you one more. So you went.
I follow up with Evan Ingram. So I got my tight end. So now my both receivers are filled out, both running backs, and now I've got another running back in my flex in David Montgomery with Evan Ingram at tight end. So I'm loving my team right now. I'm loving my lineup. It's looking really good.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of tendencies, as your Mike Hall would like to say. With you drafting tight end at that 6th round, like it is just that.
Well, they're right there. You know, you have to.
You're either getting OJ or Evan Ingram in the last 3 drafts you've mentioned.
Every single one I've done.
So if you're in a draft with Dylan, that's where he's going. Anyhow.
Yeah, if you want those guys, you got to draft them early, which I'm okay with because there's multiple guys down that I'm okay with. Which, if someone drafts these guys earlier, it's going to open up more opportunity for me to get a really good, solid receiver right now, too.
Like you gave for me. But
exactly.
Anyhow, so that was now after my Mark Ingram pick, we went with a receiver, obviously, because remember, I have Tyreek Hill as my only receiver now, and this is that range of, once again, DJ Moore, Alshon Jeffrey, Robbie Anderson, all these guys. So I went with the sure, I mean, not sure, but someone that I'm high on, building off a really good year. I pulled the trigger on DJ Moore. I think that him and Cam Newton have a really good chemistry. Devin Funchess is gone. He's now that number 1 receiver. Definitely like Curtis Samuel as well, big playmaker. But I was reading a lot of stuff too, and Cam and DJ have this chemistry. Like DJ's almost Cam's little brother. DJ at practice is going around and grabbing Cam's hair and pulling it, and they're chasing each other. And I just feel like they're going to build a really good chemistry, and Cam's going to be really looking for DJ Moore and looking for ways. And not only Cam, but that offense knows how explosive DJ Moore is with the ball in his hands. So
he's a beast.
I went with DJ Moore with my 2nd receiver, which I'm okay with. Obviously, though, I had to build that receiver depth more, so I wrapped back around, and as my first bench player, the 77th overall pick, I picked a solid guy, Tyler Boyd. Someone that I know you like, and he's very consistent. AJ Green coming off that injury. I think that Tyler Boyd is, once again, going to be a very consistent guy and a guy that can fill in my receiver spot.
Last year, though.
Killed me.
Killed me last.
So he's on my bench, so hopefully he doesn't kill me. And it's a mock draft, so look, I don't got to worry about it. But I went ahead and added that extra bit of receiver depth with Tyler Boyd. So that'll wrap back around. That's the 7th round. What was your next pick?
So for my first bench spot, I got Calvin Ridley.
Oh.
Steal, I feel like.
Heck
Obviously
yeah.
starting out with Antonio Brown, AJ Green. Now I have Calvin Ridley. I love that receiver setup right there. Following that up, at this point, quarterbacks are going off the board. I ended up going Carson Wentz.
What round? 8?
I think this is 9. Or 8, yeah. Round 8, Carson Wentz.
That's when he's going genuinely. I don't like taking him there. I do because I think he's an MVP caliber quarterback this year. But
I think
man, I just
Eagles'
wish
offense is gonna be
I
really
could get
good.
him at 10. I just wish I can get him at 10th round. But yet he's going in the 8th, 9th if you're lucky.
I mean, it just depends on your draft too, and who's drafting quarterbacks early, which a lot of people like to do these days. So
Yeah.
quarterbacks do fly off the board where it's either taking him or I'm gonna have to rely on Tom Brady, which isn't a bad pick, or Ben Roethlisberger, one of those old farts.
Yeah. So after
So that was my wraparound at 88. So now it comes back to you.
you only listed one though. Oh no, Calvin
Calvin
Ridley,
Ridley.
and then that's right. Sorry, Carson Wentz. So that's not bad. That's the end of the almost 9th round.
Yep.
So not bad. So I actually, with my second bench spot, I went more receiver depth just simply to have because I went light on receivers the first 4 rounds. And I went with someone that has had an amazing offseason, have been spoken really highly about, someone that I really like. And with the, injury proneness to DeAndre Hopkins, I went ahead and pulled the trigger on Kiki Coutier. You might have thought I was thinking Will Fuller, but Will Fuller scares the shit out of me, honestly. I mean, he's played like 4 games in the last 2 years. So
He scored like 12 touchdowns.
and then in those 4 games, scored 12 touchdowns. So it's really scary to draft him. So I went with the Kiki Coutier, who I think is going to be a consistent guy in the slot this year. So I went with him for more receiver depth, and then I followed that pick up with, once again, Latavius Murray, who's just lingering out there, and it's hard for me not to get that running back depth when, he could score touchdowns. He's gonna score touchdowns probably, and anything obviously. God forbid, I hope nothing does happen to Alvin Kamara, but just like what happened with Jerick McKinnon in the past and stuff, Latavius Murray can man that whole role. He can be a 3-down back if they need him to be. So that's always exciting to have someone on your bench that can fill that role. So so I followed up with a running back just to get a little more depth. He's actually my 4th running back because Mark Ingram's in my flex at running back as well. So I was comfortable taking him a little later. And then that'll wrap right back around to you, D. Where'd you go with some depth?
I went with handcuff, Darrell Henderson to.
That's right. You had Todd Gurley.
Yep. So I figured I'd solidify my favorite backfield in the NFL.
And 10th round, can't go wrong.
No.
I mean, it's a later round pick for a guy that could just save
I've got
you.
3 solid running backs in my opinion. So I think Darrell Henderson. I'm really never going to play him unless I need to. With that being said, following it up with another receiver just to build some more depth, Larry Fitzgerald, Steele. Once again, him and Emmanuel Sanders both in that 10, 11, 12 range.
Grab him.
All day
Grab
long, these
them.
guys, they play ball. They play ball really well. That's why their careers have been so long. Obviously, that's a concern for some people. But to me, every year I'm like, do I do it or do I not do it? And then I'm regretting not doing it. So I'm going to pull the trigger and take Larry Fitz on that turnaround, which would lead to your next pick.
Yep. So on that turnaround, I went with another guy we've both drafted quite a bit. That's Rolls-Royce Freeman. Obviously, the upside's there. He's my 4th to last pick, so it's like, why not take the shot on someone like this who has the upside? So I went ahead and drafted him. And then right after I drafted Rolls-Royce, I went with a tight end, and that's Vance McDonald, who at this range, there is that Vance, Kyle Rudolph, and then some of those rookies that intrigue me like Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, even a Jimmy Graham kind of interests me as well.
Right?
So this is that range where it is hit or miss. You can go with any of these guys. You don't know what you're going to get and just pray for the best. The one thing I do like about Vance McDonald, Jesse James is gone. Antonio Brown's gone. Lev Bell's gone. There's I think it's something like almost 200 targets. Almost 200 targets now. What are they supposed to all go to Juju? I don't think so. Vance McDonald's I think gonna have a pretty big target share in this offense, and not to mention be a red zone threat. So
for sure.
I think Vance, as not sexy of a name that is, and not someone that I love seeing in my lineup, could simply be a week-to-week starter that I'm happy with. That's putting up 10 to 15 to 20 points a game that I'm happy with. And when he gets the ball in his hand, that man is a truck to tackle.
Boom!
Truck to tackle. So
Yeah.
I went with Vance. I just pulled the trigger on him. It was really him or Kyle Rudolph, but I took Vance in this scenario. And then, Dale, that would actually wrap right back around to you.
Yeah, so following up.
Follow up
Larry
with, I think, the
Fitz.
last 2 picks.
Yeah, once again, I'm going to pull the trigger on Kareem Hunt. I'm
Wow.
just going to hold him on my bench, let him.
That late, too?
Yeah, once again,
Come
I'm loving it. Then I followed up with Saints defense.
Gotcha.
I
Cool.
was hoping for the Browns, but they got drafted like 2 in front of me. So
I went defense and kicker my very last 2 picks. So the last 2 players that round out my team, I'm ecstatic about. I really am. I went with a little double doozy here, and I have Tyreek Hill and Pat Mahomes together, and they're on a bye week 12. I went ahead and this was tough. I went ahead and drafted Lamar Jackson to be my backup quarterback, which is scary. There's a high risk, high
yeah,
reward.
but what is he on your rankings?
Lamar Jackson is rated number 9. He's a top 10 quarterback,
Yeah.
and that's
So
I have
this
him there
would be
for a
a
reason
steal.
because. And exactly, and to have 2, and he's trade bait. He's so many things if that's how he plays out to be. But I had a really tough decision with my last pick because I almost drafted Marquise Hollywood Brown. But I'm looking at my tight end position, and Vance McDonald, not a super sexy name. Mark Andrews, we know in Madden went up to 95. We know he's been talked about very highly in this offense. We know that young quarterbacks love their tight ends. So I went ahead and went back-to-back. I went Lamar Jackson to pair up with Mark Andrews, who I could fill in on any bye weeks that pop up. Lamar Jackson, if he does do as well as I think he does, he could be trade bait. Same with Mark Andrews. Or I keep Mark Andrews and he's not good. So that kind of rounds out my draft. I did draft Denver Broncos defense late, which in the last pick overall, which I'll take all day. They got some playmakers. They got the sack ability with Vaughn and Bradley Chubb. If they could get that going, I mean, we're looking at a scary defense. Chris Harris finally back and ready to go. Anyhow, so I love that route going the 1-1 for sure.
Yeah. So my last 2 picks too. To round out my team, Tom Brady, Marcole Hardman. Once again, Tom Brady, he's a beast. He's a
Love it.
beast. Steal. Marcole Hardman, high potential. So
What is it's crazy to me. Tom Brady was a top 5 rounder last year. You know what I mean? Like picked within the top 5 rounds last year, and now he's being your last pick.
everyone keeps talking about
Last pick?
that
He's
he's washed up.
He's a dinosaur because it's crazy.
I mean,
He's that old.
they're ridiculous. But anywho, I mean,
But and then
definitely,
obviously if that rounds out our 1-1.
Yeah.
I think we both agree that's kind of the best strategy just
I
because you
mean,
fill all
yeah.
areas right off the bat, or the 2 main areas in a sense. I went quarterback early, 3rd round, so that was kind of a loop. If you go
Just
like
more
Dylan
balance,
did, Dylan had more depth with the running backs and receivers. I love it. I'm in tight end, obviously drafting early, so a lot of different ways you can go. Obviously, there is one more route, and that would be drafting a tight end early, and that's like Travis Kelce, obviously. Because I actually did that last night on another mock. We did mocks with the yin yang here. But Kelce was at the top of my 2nd round pick, very top of the board. I took him. Obviously, if you take a tight end in your first 2 picks, you're going to be lacking at whatever position you didn't pick. So if you picked a running back first and then a tight end, your receiver position, you need to draft that next. If you went receiver first and tight end second, you have to draft a running back 3rd, in my opinion. And if you want to get crazy, you pair up Pat Mahomes in the 3rd with Travis Kelce in the 2nd, and then you are SOL when it comes to whatever position you didn't draft. But there is a good amount of depth here, so you can make up for it if you draft smartly.
So thanks for tuning in, guys. Appreciate it. Once again, go follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Subscribe to us on iTunes. I mean, we're posting, from this point forward, nonstop.
iTunes, YouTube, everywhere. Everywhere that you need it, it's coming to you. All the best fantasy advice, always. Good luck.
Have a great day, guys.